nest in the gravel at the bottom of the stream, and the male fertilizes her eggs as they come out into the nest. This year, there's been a problem because it's been so dry, hardly any water in the creek when these guys are coming in to begin with, and so it was difficult for the male and the female to get the job of breeding done. Somebody asked earlier, why do we do this artificially? Because we can make conditions perfect for these fish to successfully breed. This is what they look like when they first come in, nice and silver. But there's a lot of changes that take place in the body chemistry when they come from salt water into fresh water. Chum salmon develop this dark black line down the side of the body. That's how you can best identify them. And so you will see them coming up here trying to breed in very, very shallow water, doing their best to make a nest, doing their best to have enough water flowing over the eggs that they will survive. This fish looks different. This is a coho salmon. He is much brighter when he comes on in terms of really dark red color. These are acrobatic fish. One of the reasons we have the hatchery up here is that we've got waterfalls downstream that a lot of the fish can't get over. The coho can get over some of the falls, not the biggest one that we have down in Cliff Park. The males, though, they develop a kind of grotesque snout. That's to make them really scary, to scare off other things like trout that might be wanting to eat the eggs. This is pink salmon. They come into the creek first. We have them only every second year. They are only 2-year-old fish. The other fish are on a 4-year cycle. The humpbacks have that big humpy thing on the back to tell them apart from the other kind. But all 3 of these species, the pink salmon, the chum salmon, the coho, they use the creek in a different way. Where they spawn, when they spawn, what they like to eat. But everybody has got the same purpose, to lay the eggs, to get the new generation of baby salmon coming down to the ocean. Now, we need to capture some of these fish to do what we're doing out there at the hatchery. We have a fence that we put into the creek. It's not there all year long. It goes in only in the fall. It goes right across the creek so that fish that are coming up can't get over that. Sometimes when we get a rain and the water level rises, we have to raise the level of the fence. But what we're designing this for is to capture the fish. The fence directs the fish where the arrow is pointing into a cage. The fish can get in, but they can't get out. And so we come down, our hatchery manager does every day, and clears the cage out. He opens the door for some of the fish to get upstream and breed naturally, but we take some of them, generally about 5, maybe 10% of the fish that are in the trap, in order to provide our brood stock to get the eggs. But that fence has to be monitored every day. You know, with the rain, we get logs that come down the creek, and sometimes fish will die above and get washed down and plug up the fence. But when it's working properly, this is what we're there for. This is a lovely chum salmon female. This one is a coho taken a little later on. We use the fence also, of course, for enumeration, to tell how many fish are going upstream. And also for education. It's a great place to bring people so they can see the salmon close up. But we need a way to get them up to the hatchery here. So we have a truck, it's got a tank in it, pumps oxygen in there so the fish have got lots to breathe. We fill the tank with maybe a dozen to, at the most, probably 14 or 15 broodstock to bring up to the hatchery. The reason the hatchery is here is because this is where the best quality water is. We live in a community and we are polluting like any other community, but this water is coming directly off the mountain, and so it's nice and clean. In the fall, we do have to supplement the fish fence by netting some of the fish, especially the coho that come up later in the season. The coho can actually jump over the fence if they wish. So it's harder to get them to go into the trap. So sometimes we have to net them. We put the ones that we've captured in bags. We then take the bags to the truck and bring them up to the hatchery. And while we're down there, we're looking for problems that the fish may encounter. Trees that have come down and have formed blockage. Sometimes we have to remove things like that so that the natural breeding continues to take place. So here's the sign where we are now. We've got a beautiful hatchery here. This was built about 8 or 9 years ago. There has been a hatchery here actually since back to 1983, but that hatchery was in an old chicken barn. Not a very good place to be taking eggs from salmon. So we have a state-of-the-art facility. Metro Vancouver helped us build this. We've got tanks for storing some of the fish for when they come up here. And it is an educational facility as well, as you can see what's going on down there now, showing people what's going on. On a daily basis, our hatchery manager fills out a sign that says what's going on, how many fish we've got, and we've got lots of volunteers. These are some students of mine when I was teaching in the community. Now when the fish come up to the hatchery here, they are not necessarily ready to spawn. So we need to store them in tanks of various kinds to give them a chance for the eggs to mature and the males to become filled with sperm. So we check the fish on a daily basis, whether they're in the big tanks or in the troughs. Troughs are a little bit easier to get access to the fish. But we have to kill the fish. The females we have to kill in order to get the eggs up. And we have to make sure that no blood or water, slime, anything like that gets on the eggs, because that will cause the egg to harden and sperm will not be able to get in. So here we are, we've got some females ready to go. And they're waiting. While they're waiting, we'll get some males. Now the males, like milking a cow, need to be alive. You can't milk a dead cow. So we have males that we can hold and squeeze, just like squeezing the udder of a cow to get the sperm to come out. We have a little container that we collect it in. This is called milt, and it is a huge amount that we get out of the male salmon, much more than you boys can get. Now, the reason for that is that fertilization for the salmon is taking place in a stream, and there needs to be much more milk in order for the sperm to have a chance to get into the body of the female by swimming to fertilize the eggs. So here we've got some females now. They're dead. They've been bled and they've been dried off so that water is not going to get on the eggs. This is a very, very skillful process of opening up the body. The eggs are all in a big sac on the inside called a skein. As soon as we rupture that, the eggs come pouring out. We can get maybe 3,000, 3,500 eggs out of a coho salmon, a chum, maybe a little bit less. But these are beautiful eggs that you see here all ready to go. Now once the eggs come out, we can store them for a period of maybe a couple of hours before we have to introduce the sperm. Okay? And so here's a good collection of eggs that we are going to put aside for the moment, and then we're going to take everything indoors. While that is happening, the bodies of the fish are going to be collected up in a wheelbarrow. You'll see that down here when you take a look at the egg take, because when the fish naturally decompose in the creek, all of that good stuff, the nutrient of the skin and the organs and the blood, that is the food for all of the insects and the young salmon that are going to need nourishment on the way out to the sea. Okay? So there's the eggs. Now, for us to be able to determine the success of our program, we need to know how many eggs. How many eggs? Now, we can't count up to 3,500, for 4 males that we're going to do on a day. So we take a subsample. We take a small number of eggs, we weigh it, then we bring along the bucket, and we weigh all of the eggs in the bucket, and you can do the arithmetic to figure out how to calculate the number of eggs that we're actually getting there. So again, it varies extremely from fish to fish. The size of the eggs varies from fish to fish. There's so many variables that are involved, and we need to take lots of statistics to prove that what we're doing here is valuable and successful. Okay? So, here we are now. We had a big egg take here. Every one of those buckets represents a different donor female and the eggs in it. Look at the amount of sperm in that bucket. This was super stud that we milted on Friday. That's more sperm than I've ever seen in a salmon. We, just like the salmon that fertilize many females, actually, in the creek, they have the mate, but they are inclined to find other ones too. So they mix the sperm among several donors. Naturally, we do the same thing artificially. We put the sperm, we spread it around from one bucket to another so that we get diversity. We get genetic variation. So there it is. The sperm has been added. We'll mix it up a little bit and give the sperm a chance to find an egg. The fertilization is, it's about 98% to 99% successful when we do it artificially. I don't know what it is in the creek, but it's far, far, far less than that. We need to wash the eggs. We treat the eggs with some fungicides so that they don't get moldy. We pick out, that's what we're doing here. We pick out the dead eggs. We can see they're the white ones in there. They haven't been fertilized. And then we go to the incubation room. So in the incubation room, we again wash the eggs. We take the eggs from an identified number of donors, and we have two ways of incubating the eggs. The most common is the tray, because what the tray does is it gives us access to see closely what's happened to the eggs. Are any of them getting moldy? Have any of them died? Are they all developing? And we have these incubators as well, but they're great for demonstrations, for public education, but they're not so easy for handling the eggs on an individual basis. So these are the eggs now. They've hardened, so they've got a shell on them. And we take a look at them daily, and what we're looking for is the development of the embryo, the baby on the inside. The arrows are pointing to that little dot. We say that these eggs have now become eyed, and the reproductive process is underway successfully. A little later on in December, we will be doing egg takes with coho. Generally, the coho require a lot of time in the creek here in order for their eggs and sperm to mature. And so we keep them in those tanks. We take data on them. We take scales from the various kinds of measurements that we take off the fish. There's two kinds you can see there. Some that are hatchery raised and some that are naturally bred. And the reason we can tell is, does it have this little adipose fin? Because we clip off the adipose fin of the hatchery raised fish so the fishermen can tell it. In this creek, when sport fishermen come, they can keep only hatchery raised fish, fish that don't have an adipose fin. If it's got an adipose fin, it's been naturally bred, needs to be returned to the creek. Catch and release. So these are the things that hatch out. These are the alevins. They have got a bag of food, an embryo sac, and this will keep them fed while they're down in the gravel. They don't want to come up because there's all kinds of predators, from crayfish to kingfishers to otters and things. So for the first month or so after hatching, they stay in the gravel until they come out like this and they're ready to shoot off downstream out to the ocean. Yeah. The coho, though, are different. The coho, after they have hatched out in the incubation room, we put them in ponds and we feed them on a daily basis. Fish meal that comes from, a lot of it comes from Peru, from Chile, some of it comes from China. And there is a report that's on the fence around the pond that tells what is on the inside. And Darren will come up and feed these regularly until they get to be about this size. Okay? And we do that so that now the fish has a better chance of survival. He's not little and tiny and weak, he's now big and strong and husky. And that's the fin that we cut off in order to identify that this has been a hatchery-raised fish. And then they go into Kanaka Creek. And bye-bye guys, they're on their own. In April, we have an event called Goodbye Chums. And it's our biggest event of the year, although with you guys here today, you've made this a really great success. We take buckets of the fry, and we give them to kids, and we say, let them go, boys and girls. And of course, that is the beginning of the next stage of the story, the travel, the great adventure that these little guys have got ahead of them for the next 4 years down in the Pacific Ocean. So thanks very much for your patience, and if you've got any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them. And now you can go down and check out the next time that Darren brings those fish so that you can see that happening for yourself. Anybody have any questions?
We have group of just arrived in Canada just for a year or so.
Okay.
And then I just want to have them some appreciation of Canadian culture, and then environmental control is part of it. Can you tell us something that they can have to provide a habitat so that the
Sure.
salmon?
Okay.
Yeah, because you guys are doing a great effort in trying to keep
In Canada, you are probably aware of this already if you've been here a year. In Canada, we're very, very proud of the volunteer work that people put in to various activities, not just raising fish, but around the community. So many things are done to benefit people in the community and to benefit the environment that are done voluntarily. We don't get paid for it, right? So, the organization I belong to, first of all, this park is one of many Metro Vancouver parks around the Lower Mainland. I've lost track of how many there are. I think there's 23 or 24. I could be wrong, but there's a lot of parks. This is only one. And many of these parks have got a volunteer organization like ours. The Kanaka Education and Environmental Partnership Society. Partnership because Metro Vancouver, that owns this park, Department of Fisheries, which is a federal organization, and volunteers, We Are Keeps, work together in order to educate people and in order to maintain the quality of this park. So this is an example of the education program. Right now we have our education coordinator down at that fish fence, and he is doing programs, and he does programs throughout the week with school children, forming them as I'm informing you about salmon. Okay? But we do many other things. We organize tree planting. Okay? In this park there are many what do we call invasive species. Plants that came from Nepal or South America or goodness knows where in the world that have been introduced here, and they are out competing some of our local plants. And so we remove a lot of those so that they don't take over, because a lot of the animals depend on our native plants for their food. And if the plants coming in are invasive and they didn't belong here in the first place, then that creates a problem. So we plant trees, we clear brush, we work on trails, we're planting a garden, a pollination garden out in front here. Well, I think it's underway now, this program. Just a lot of volunteer things that, where are you all from Vancouver? Or all over?
Metro, mostly.
Okay, so
Burnaby, Richmond, Coquitlam,
yeah.
and all around.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Coquitlam's got a hatchery too. Hyde Creek, it's called.
Yeah.
They're looking for volunteers. Burnaby Lake in Burnaby has got a wonderful Metro Vancouver park with a nature house always looking for volunteers to do things. Across the river in Langley, the Langley Environmental Program